Okay, good afternoon. This is a meeting of the Freeport Withdrawal Committee, and this is at the conference room in the Azure Cafe on Thursday, July 31st at noontime. It's now 12:20, and the meeting is opening, and in attendance we have Rich de Grand Prix, Kate Werner, Dennis King is on the phone, and myself. We have one item on the agenda, and that is to consider approving the Freeport Withdrawal Agreement as amended by the RSU 5 Board. May I have a motion, please, that the Freeport Withdrawal Committee approve the proposed agreement?
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, great, thank you. Should we have a little discussion? We had a long meeting last night, and the RSU 5 Board had a long meeting last night, and they looked over and responded to the withdrawal agreement that we had proposed. They made several amendments. The amendments included the removal of a clause that caused the associated tuition contract to terminate if one or the other of the towns withdrew. So that clause is now gone. The other amendment was that the amount of the capital repayment, or the reimbursement, I think they called it, the increase from $136,000 to $361,000 and change. And then there was some legalese changes that are non-substantive, and then there was the moving of the grandfathering clause from or copying of the grandfathering clause from the tuition contract into the main body of the withdrawal agreement. So it's in two places just to be redundant. And then there were some corrections and some other smaller changes.
Well, moving that grandfathering removed the requirement for each community to ratify the tuition agreement in order for it to be standing.
Yeah, we believe that may be true, yes, but that's a legal question that the lawyers will have to do. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dennis.
You used the word redundant. It was redundant.
Yes, it was a copy. It's duplicate. The same language is in both the withdrawal agreement itself and in the tuition contract associated. There was concern that if the tuition contract itself was not ratified in the RSU, so actually, Dennis, I'll back up a second because you weren't there last night. The lawyers brought up a concern that tuition contracts need to be ratified by both parties. Freeport will be effectively ratifying the tuition contract by voting for the whole withdrawal agreement, but the RSU, Pownland Durham, would possibly need to vote on that, and there was some legal question as to whether or not the RSU board would have authority or whether they need to vote, and whether it's a tuition contract or whether it's part of the withdrawal agreement makes a difference. So in order to try to remove the ambiguity with respect to the grandfathering clause, we put it in both places so that it was pretty clear that it's our intent that that survives no matter what happens with the ratification of the tuition contract.
I see. Yep.
So that was a not a concession, but just an adjustment that we made to try to make sure that we took care of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does that also make sure that the terms of the grandfathering are essentially the same?
Are essentially the same as the as are outlined in the tuition contract.
For the purpose of putting it in there to meet in the first place.
Exactly. So the net of it is there were some additional concessions from Freeport, mainly around the amount of cash exchanged at the moment of withdrawal, and around the termination clause should the one or the other party withdraw. So with those two concessions and the other smaller adjustments, the board voted at 11:30 or so last night unanimously to accept the proposal and send it back to us for our acceptance. So that's what we're doing here today.
My thoughts are that the agreement that we sent to the board survived largely intact. There were some changes most notably, I think, is the increase in their reimbursement. I think that it's important that we retained our proposed tuition structure. And I think that that's important going forward. It's important to a lot of Freeport voters. So,
Yeah.
and many of the other things are simply changes that didn't change our respective philosophy, just some of the language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think this continues to be, I mean, obviously, as we've said all along, the fact that there's a tuition contract at all is a major concession from Freeport's standpoint, and but that this tuition contract is, and this tuition contract itself has concessions from where we would, what we would think would be a reasonable contract. And I'll tell you, I'm hearing about it. I'm hearing from folks who think this is too generous, and I continue to hear it. This morning, my phone's been ringing off the hook. You know, some folks are happy, and most folks are happy that we're done with this phase of it. But a lot of folks are also concerned that it may be too many gives and too much of a concession. But I'm confident that this is a reasonable proposal for our community to take a good close look at, and that we'll be able to, it can form the foundation on which we can build our forward-looking school district and so forth. So, Kate, did you have any comments?
I talked to one person this morning who was glad that it was over and thinks that we did got a good deal as we possibly could have. So
good. Kate, did you have any comments further?
No, I think it's a good compromise. I think we did lose a little bit more ground, so there are some concerns. There were concerns from the public with the first agreement being too generous, so this one's even more generous. But I think it was a good compromise at the end of the night, and I think that it gives a good foundation for being able to build the financial analysis that will need to happen next, so that Freeport voters are educated on how this. It will be, as much as we can know, how much this is going to impact us going forward to get back to an independent school system.
And you know, the two things that stuck out in my mind were our goals were the children and making sure they had access to good good education, and we accomplished that with the grandfathering and the rest of the contracting. Yep. The other thing we had to be careful of is that the kids coming to a new Freeport system would be bringing enough money with them so that we can educate them well. Yep. And I think we accomplished that also. Yep.
Yeah, I think the board worked really well together last night, given the circumstances of where we're at. I think it worked well together to come to a compromise. I think it's fantastic that all the students in the school systems will be respected as far as going forward. The grandfathering is in place, and they'll have continuity to their education. That was a major goal, the primary goal of both groups, I believe. And I thought that it worked well, considering what we were facing down.
Yep. So the next steps, what'll happen now is that we'll take a vote in a moment, and once we vote, then we'll our lawyer Dan Stockford has queued up an email to the commissioner with this agreement attached for the commissioner. I called this morning and gave them a heads up that it's coming, and that it passed unanimous. And that they are, and they're looking forward to turning it around. Paula Graval said she might even take it home for the weekend to read, and that they expected to be able to give us feedback next week, which feedback would be a preliminary, a provisional acceptance or a preliminary acceptance, whatever it is, approval, preliminary approval, which basically means until the next phase. This is that all of the legalese and all of the contract terms look in line with state law and the commissioner's interpretation thereof. So I asked them about what are the types of things that people have problems with in these agreements, and the commissioner has to make edits. And she said it's usually around debt or state finance debt or special ed requirements and so forth.
Yeah.
And I indicated that I thought we were pretty vanilla on those things. We don't have any debt, and the special ed stuff is we're handling it just the way most people do. So I think that she is expecting to be able to turn that around pretty quickly. Once we get the preliminary approval, then the next step is to have a public hearing. And I've spoken with Nelson. The way the law reads, the RSU board chair calls the public hearing. And I've spoken with Nelson this morning, and he has proposed that we do a public hearing and we do it down in the community centers so that we can broadcast it live. And that he would essentially, I mean, the plan is anyway, we talked about the idea that he would call the meeting and then turn it over to us, and we would take the community through through the agreement blow by blow, and then facilitate a discussion, and that would be the public hearing. The likely dates for that, and we don't have it nailed down, but the likely dates would be Tuesday the 26th of August, or Thursday the 28th. And that would give the DOE time to get the preliminary approval back and give us the 20-day window there. So I think we are going to work with Melanie and the other folks to see about getting the facility, and then we can begin putting that in place. We need to have that locked and loaded before they give us the preliminary response. So they will want us to tell us that we've noticed the meeting and so forth by the time before they give us the preliminary. So I'd like to try and do that today or tomorrow if we can.
Okay.
Peter, do you have any idea how many of these withdrawal processes have gone like this, in the sense of it comes out with a positive vote at the RSU level, and is it usual that they go along, depending on time, of course, timing, that they usually go through fairly easily if they have a unanimous agreement?
I anecdotally, Paul indicated that that once the approval is there, they'll usually go through. If there's an agreement, they'll usually go through with pretty good process. They are currently running 10 withdrawal processes right now.
Wow.
So 10.
So it is broken.
So they are. She said we've been working really hard on these things, and we've got kind of a system in place, and so they are prepared to move quickly through it. Everybody is geared up to and understands the importance of getting to a November deadline, including the DOE. And although she kind of was concerned about having to read the documents over the weekend, she indicated that they would be working hard to get that done in time. So we should. I expect that we'll be able to move this pretty rapidly through the process. Barring any road bumps, I mean, I don't anticipate any, but I've been surprised throughout this process by things I wasn't expecting. So I don't want to overpromise here. I think we should all keep on our tippy toes. I also talked with Nelson about the next steps, and we should work with the administration, with Kelly and the superintendents, to get the other two the exhibits filled out and get those up to the DOE as soon as possible, so that we can get that and get it up to the DOE with a signature from Nelson. And he has expressed flexibility, and he'll meet us and do whatever he needs to get that signature there. Let me see, what else I want to say. Public hearing.
Go ahead. I have contact from Kelly. We
you
have an
did?
email
Okay.
from Kelly
Okay.
about that. So
All right.
she's already on it, as she always is, and so we can iron that out, I think, this week. If you're up for working on that with me.
I will also try and see if we can get together with Dennis. Now that he's not running buses and all that, hopefully we can nail his feet down for a meeting and sort out buses and vehicles and what have you. And then we'll bounce that off of the RSU to make sure that they're they're fine with that that way to disperse vehicles and stuff.
I think we're the RSU has authorized the administration to figure that out with us and with the chair to supervise. So I think we're good to go with that, and let's get that done ASAP. And if you guys could take point, Rich and Kate, that would be great, because I'll be out of town largely next week. I have to travel.
Okay.
So.
And then the other thing that I wanted to make sure is that Tracy Stevens is in the loop when it comes to the I sent the hard line deadlines to you all as far as obviously we've got some time we can work with. The most flexibility time wise is now, between now and the end of this of August, as far as getting that timeline crunched a little bit so it's not so tight at the end, because it gets pretty tight, and there's some drop dead dates that we put together this morning, so that those are in the email. But I would just want to make sure that Tracy Stevens, the town clerk for Freeport, is in the loop as far as what the absentee ballots and
so forth.
I'm assuming that's all built into these deadlines, but I don't want to assume that. I want to make sure she's ready to go and comfortable with the schedule.
We also need to know exactly the wording for the question.
Yes, exactly.
And those kind of things, so that we're not scrambling around at the last moment.
I think that may be even in the
it's in the statute, I believe.
So, that's just copy paste.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready to move the question here, guys?
I think so.
I am.
I'm ready.
Okay, great. Let's.
I'll move it.
What's that? All right, you'll move it. Okay, great. Well, let's take it by roll then. Rich Grand Prix.
Yes.
Dennis King.
Yes.
Kate Warner.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And the motion passes. Congratulations, guys. We have an agreement. And I want to just go on the record as saying this has been a huge amount of work for everybody on this committee and on the working group and throughout. And I really think we just lost Dennis. Let me see if I can call him back here.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work and a lot of time. I now know why my fellow councilors took one step backwards.
Yeah, right.
Wait a minute.
This is the Chinese curse of may you live in interesting times, right?
Well, I was happy to do it.
Yeah, no, I think we had a good team and we worked well together, and I think we worked through a lot of difficult stuff, and I think we ended up with a result that will be satisfying and represents a compromise, a respectful compromise. Dennis, are you there? Oh, hold on a second. I gotta put you on speaker. Why isn't that not working?
You've finished recording. You may hang up. Press 1 for more options.
All right, Dennis, we're calling you back. I guess you've gone into a dark zone, but we did record your vote, so thanks very much. And I was just saying to the group that how appreciative I am of all of everybody's commitment and contribution over the last months. And we're not quite done yet. We have to run this public meeting, and we have to run it all the way to the vote. But I do appreciate everybody's involvement to date and energy and good positive contribution. So. Thank you, Dennis, and thanks to the rest of the group here. And Dennis, we'll catch up later, and I hope you have a great camping trip. Right, so he's gone.
Okay.
So any further business? Any further comments?
I know that one of the things that we're going to be looking at going forward here pretty quickly is once we finish up the other appendices, we're going to need to start producing some sort of a sample budget. And I've been asked by a lot of folks if we can it's not just a 1 year, it needs to be kind of a 3-year window to see what the evolution of this is going forward. And we realize that we're going to have to assume some things to get that done. But
yeah,
I think it's important that we do our best work there, because I think people largely want to feel that they understand what they're voting for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be important to do some amount of financial analysis at this point, and I think that the town council probably needs to provide some input on who's going to do that and with what authority, because I feel like our charge is about this getting the agreement, and I'd like to have the town council further charge us if they'd like us to create a budget so that it's clear who's asking for it, that our confidence has been placed in this group to do that, and so forth. And so I think we're having a dialogue about that. I know I've heard from several counselors about this already, and
I'm
I
going to be
think we want to go
updating
back
them.
and forth.
We're
We're all
meeting
going to be
next
meeting
Tuesday,
next Tuesday. We're on the agenda
Yeah.
on Tuesday, so I'm planning to be here for that. So I'm coming back from Boston
For that meeting.
So
It's near the end of the agenda, so it's not.
great, I can come back late then, and we can all give the update together, and then we can talk about the next steps at that point. So I think that makes sense. We talked about the public hearing, we talked about the approximate dates, and we're going to try and post that as soon as possible, and talked about the process going forward with the DOE, and then I guess that's all the business we have.
We'll continue to post information as we get it on the website.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So stay tuned to the website if you're out there in listening land. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are done. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.